So I'd really like to invite Phil Reeves and Terry Wohlers because they're both industry experts. They both have very deep expertise in this industry for years and years. So I think there's a lot of people that can get inspired by 3D printing and say all sorts of wonderful things, but these guys will actually back it up with experience, and these guys will actually kind of, it's very important when you're in 3D printing to give people kind of a realistic kind of expectation and to tell them, okay, but wait, that's not possible. And I think these are the type of guys that will sit up there and say, hey, it's great that you're all so enthusiastic, but let's take a few steps back here and look at what's possible. So I think those two guys would be a really good kind of like anchor for any panel. So Phil and Terry will both be there with very deep expertise. Now, if we're looking at what they would need to discuss, I think the one thing that won't solve itself is intellectual property and issues with intellectual property. So how can I, as a designer, if I were to become a designer, how can I protect my intellectual property? And on the other hand, how do I, as a designer, not bump into anyone else's property? And the third thing that fascinates me about this whole thing is how do you, cause people to get, on the one hand, rewarded for their innovations without letting them get the ability to slow things down by suing people or slow things down by just being obstinate with the innovation that they've made. So IP is going to be one of the major issues. And I think also the one of the other major issues that needs to be addressed is design. So how do you get anyone, or how do you let anyone design for 3D printing? What kind of tools do you need? What kind of process do you need to let that work? Because of course now a lot of people are in 3D printing already, but the market itself will become much larger if, of course, anyone can draw anything very, very conveniently, or anyone can specify exactly what they want in some kind of way. So how do you get people to design? Do you have to get them to work with someone? Do you have to make a really easy 3D modeling tool? Is there another, like a quiz-based approach you could take? So those are the two things that I think really need to be discussed, because people want to talk about the 3D printers and all this other stuff, but that stuff will solve itself eventually, and that's going very well already. But the IP issue, nobody's really working on that, and the current IP laws and IP, like any kind of intellectual property structure in a country, it's just not set up at all for what 3D printing can do and what 3D printing is doing at the moment. So I'd really, that's why, I think that would be a really great thing to discuss. And also this design tool. I mean, what does it mean if everyone's a designer, and how can we make everyone a designer? Is it possible to do this? And this, of course, make the user, greatly increase the user base of 3D printing. Of course, now if you have, instead of 50 million people, you have like 1 billion people that are able to use the technology, then of course, it'll basically cause all the other problems to solve themselves just through sheer volume. Hi, I'm Joris Peels, and I'd like to let anyone make anything. And I'm currently the community manager for a 3D printing service, iMaterialize. And iMaterialize is just a 3D printing service that lets designers upload things, and then we produce them for them. And if you're not a designer, you can customize certain existing designs. And so, in that way, we hope to let more people manufacture, and more people make unique items and unique things, and more people make exactly what they want. Well, 3D printing is already an industry that's been around for 20 years and has over $1 billion in revenue. So it's already a lot bigger than a lot of people think. And if you look at where the industry is being used now, I think some of the biggest things that will happen will be in patient-specific medicine. So these are like things like hip implants or surgical guides or any kind of medical tools that will be custom-made for patients. Another big thing will be people 3D printing at home. I don't believe that everyone will do this. I do believe that a lot of people will do this, and everyone that has basically their own Dremel tool today will at one point have their own home 3D printer. And the third thing you see, the really large trend, is that a lot of people are using online services, such as, for example, iMaterialize or Shapeways, where I used to work, and they'll use these services to 3D print their own creations. And these things are also kind of, they're going to get bigger and bigger, and more people are going to create exactly what they want. And what I think the industry is going is, I think it is possible for us to be a $90 billion revenue a year industry by the end of this decade. And that will be more of the same, let's say, expanding much more into giving people an ability to create things themselves, giving people the ability to manufacture things themselves is going to be the key to the industry. And this will be reinforced by the whole idea of being able to come up with any geometry, because that's what 3D printing does. Like the shape that you can make is completely free, let's say. It's built into the process. So that means that a lot of people are going to be able to compete with other people, are going to be able to compete with established industries by using 3D printing and other services. So somebody's going to have to, or going to be able to take on Apple, for example, or somebody else is going to start manufacturing, small design objects in their home, and that's already happening right now. It's already been happening for several years, and I think that's going to propel our industry into being a very large industry that's used a lot of the time. The best example of this is that the 10 million people right now worldwide that are walking around with 3D printed hearing aids. For in-the-ear hearing aids, 3D printing is actually the predominant production technology. And this is that a lot of people don't realize this, but 10 million people have these things and they're using them every single day. And the reason why 3D printing is able to completely take over this industry as a manufacturing technology is because the hearing aids themselves, the 3D printed hearing aids themselves, were of a superior fit to the mass-produced ones. And this is, I think, a key driver for growth for 3D printing, where you see that a better fit to a particular task or a better fit to a particular person will cause it to be adopted by an industry. So that's what I think is the single best example of, or case study example of a 3D printed product, because it is such an important technology, because it's also happening at scale with 10 million people. Because it's been happening for a couple of years already, and it's completely supplanted the mass production technology that used to dominate the hearing aid industry. So another great example, I think, or for example, the iMaterialize lamps, and of course now this is the company I work for. But what we've done is we've basically, for $200, we've made a lamp that you can design. So you can upload any design you want to, and we will turn it into a complete lamp. So it'll have a dimmer on it, it'll have a lamp on it, there's a lamp base, and you can submit whatever design you want for that. And if you can't 3D model, it'll be more expensive because you get somebody else to draw this design for you, so it'll be an extra $60. But for around $260 or something like that, you can get your very own lamp, or like any lamp or any design you want to. And I think this is a very important example, not only because we're doing it, but also because this shows that people can actually make complete 3D printed products that are combined with existing mass-produced products. Things that are different, that they could not come up with previously, they could not have in their homes previously. And I also think this example points to the way to people making money by selling products from their own homes. So this whole idea of just starting up a business that, for example, sells these lamps worldwide. And then, for example, a company like iMaterialize could be your production partner, but the designer could then just be their very own brand. And this designer doesn't necessarily have to be like a Philippe Starck type of person or established person with a company and a brand and everything. It could just be you, right? You could start doing this, and you could start putting a product on the market. And the great thing is that it'll only cost as much as your first prototype for you to get it at home and to see it and see if you're willing to sell it. If nobody ever orders it, if no one ever buys your lamp, then that's it. Right? Then you're out like whatever it costs you to make your original prototype and whatever time you put in there as a designer. On the other hand, if people do order these lamps, there's no need for you to have any kind of inventory. So you can just sit back and have it somewhere on your own website, have people come there, and if someone orders it, you order it from iMaterialize, we produce it for you, and we ship it to that customer. So it's a completely new way of doing business, and you're basically doing business without much in the way of assets and without much in the way of organization and of companies. So, it's kind of this coast thing whereby the transaction costs are continuing being limited through the internet primarily nowadays. And so what eBay has done for making retailing widely available, 3D printing will do for manufacturing. So with in a combination of, for example, using eBay and 3D printing, then you can just sell a product worldwide, and you can also manufacture it worldwide. Or you can sell this thing on your own website, or you can sell it on a whole bunch of websites. So this kind of really leads you to a different way of doing business and a different way of kind of living. It's much more like a 4-hour work week type of way to do commerce.